Welcome to our first Top Car special covering the various rounds of the South African Rally Championship. And not only will we be looking at the thrills and spills and blow-by-blow action, we'll also be taking a look at some of the background stories.
The Cape Town-based Toyota Dealer Rally is the third round of the South African National Rally Championship. The two-day event attracted top crews from around the country, all hoping for success while contesting the 15 punishing special stages spanning some 200 kilometers of flat-out rallying. It promised to be a true test of man and machine.
And here with me to provide expert analysis and interpretation of the event is one of the legends of South African motorsport, Cyril van der Merwe.
Few South African motorsport personalities are as famous as Super Cyril van der Merwe. The multiple Springbok and ex-South African rally champion has competed locally and abroad with great success. He last actively rallied here behind the wheel of a works Daewoo Lanos. Who then has Cyril put his money on for the event?
Cyril, let's look forward to this event now. Your expectations?
To me, really, I think it's going to be a Serge, Habig, Enzo Dice up front. With Gebel maybe upsetting the apple cart every now and again. But if I was a betting man, I would say I'd put my money on Damso for this rally. He's always been very hard to beat in the Cape. I think he's very determined. You know, he's lost points in the last event. So yes, I'd give it to him.
New to the rally scene this year are the Group N4 near-standard production models featuring turbo engines and all-wheel drive. This Subaru Impreza Turbo is piloted by Johnny Gemmell.
Johnny, you're probably the find of the season. With your results up to now and your stage times, how do you feel about this event?
No, we're looking forward to this event. We've done 2 events now with this car.
And you're running up amongst the leaders, mixing it with them.
Hopefully we can do it some more this weekend, and we'll give them a hard time.
Biggest competition is going to come from where?
The first, I think, Jannie Habig, Serge Damso, Enzo Kun, and myself should be there somewhere.
Another example of the super-fast N4 category is the high-tech Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 6 of Fernando Rueda and navigator Nick Haddon. With 2 rollovers in the first 2 rallies to his credit, Rueda hasn't enjoyed much in the way of good fortune so far, though.
Fernando, if you were a cricketer, they'd say you have a perfect pair. 2 rolls, 2 events.
Yeah, Cyril, there's not much I can say. You're right. The first one I saw coming. This one I never even saw coming. You know, there's a bunk there where it shouldn't have been.
Did you have any major damage to the car?
No, it was just all cosmetic stuff. Wings, windscreen, bonnet. No, luckily the cars are strong, so it wasn't a problem at all.
You should be one of the front runners. You plan to be up front there?
Yeah, I think we're going to do it differently this time. We want to go from the word go. We'll just give it everything and see what happens. No time to worry about anything else and concentrate on finishing events. Let's try and win it.
Rueda is hoping for better luck in the Cape and has even changed the number of the car.
No more 69. What's the story there?
No, Cyril, I've never had it before. The first time I had it, we went on our roof. The second time we had it on our roof. So.
You are talking about a car number now, not...
No, I gather that. That's why people say, you know, you read it both ways.
Okay.
So no more. As you can see, 65, only one way up.
The N4s will have to pull out all the stops to take on the premium category Class A8 rally cars. These are highly modified 2-litre 2-wheel drive speed machines and are campaigned by the factory teams and top drivers, such as reigning South African rally champ Serge Damso.
You win in a non-finish. Bit of pressure on you now.
It's definitely more pressure at the moment. You know, it means I've got to win a few more to try and catch up at the moment. But rallying, anything can happen, so we just have to hang in there.
You've obviously tested the car since the last engine failure. What's it feel like?
The car is definitely a lot better from the last event. We did a lot of testing, and I feel more confident with the car, definitely.
Those in the rally know are pretty convinced that Damso's main protagonist will be Sasol Volkswagen Works pilot Jannie Habig. Also an ex-South African rally champ, Habig already has 1 win in the kitty for the year and will be chasing a 2nd in his A8 Volkswagen Golf.
You're on Serge's home ground. We've talked about that many hours. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, obviously, you know, I think psychologically he's got the pressure to do well, and maybe we can turn that to our advantage.
The N4s are starting to do well. How big a threat are they at this point in time?
I think if we have rain and the vent's slippery, we're definitely going to have a problem, and I think we must never underestimate the four-wheel drive turbocharged cars.
Ironically, some of Habig's toughest opposition could come from within his own team's ranks. Enzo Kuhn's been on the bench for a few years, but now returns as Habig's teammate in a second Class A8 Sasol Volkswagen Golf. Considered one of South African rallying's brightest stars, Kuhn is relishing the chance to get back into the thick of things.
The A8 cars versus the N4s on a fast rally like this, where do you see them being?
Yes, they have a distinct advantage here. You know, the N4 car is very stable, being a four-wheel drive car with turbo, and it's got good pulling power and torque in top gear. So I think there'll be a problem.
2 events, 2 bad results.
We had a bit of Häkkänen's luck this year. We started this year thinking that we'll have an advantage over other teams because this car had been used overseas and it's tried and tested formula. But I must be honest, we've done a lot of changes to the car and the setup. So I haven't settled down in the car, and I'm looking forward to this event to really get into the car.
The action on day one began at the Killarney Racing Circuit near Milnerton, where the track hosted a highly popular super special stage. Unlike conventional rally special stages, a super special pits 2 cars against each other on mirror images of the same stage route. It's a trend that started in the World Rally Championship abroad and is now a crowd favourite here.
Cyril, let's look at the concept of a super stage. It seems to go down rather well with the spectators.
I think it is a spectacle. You see direct competitors competing for the same piece of road. And what have you got? Probably 3,500 to 4,000 people here to watch this lot. I think it's very exciting from that point of view. People like it, and maybe they should do this every small town they go through. You know, this type of thing, we don't see that often. Cars of this quality dicing each other in a straight line or that type of thing. So, yes, I think it's great stuff.
It's easy to understand just why the crowds love the super stage action. Most of the dices were closely run affairs, and at Killarney the super special was repeated, providing spectators with double action value. Overall, though, the A8 cars were holding their own against the N4s, with Damso leading the pack. Let's take a look at the results. The action now moved into 3 night stages, which would sort out the men from the boys. With his home advantage, Damso was expected to push hard, but lost time instead, suggesting some or other mechanical malady. The works Sasol Golfs of Habig and Kuhn, on the other hand, were going great guns. The expected duel between the N4 turbo cars of Gemmel and Reeder and the frontrunners, however, was fast running out of steam. Clearly, both drivers could not match the pace of their more experienced rivals up front on stages that would have required courage in daylight, let alone at night. Gemmel, trailing the leaders by only 7 seconds after the super specials, lost a full 1 minute 39 seconds after dark. Rueda in the Mitsubishi was also struggling. Radiator problems saw him lose more than 3 minutes.
We ended up with expecting Serge to be leading, but we have Habig 6 or 9 seconds ahead of Enzo. Enzo in turn 14 seconds ahead of Serge. So I think it's going to be a lot of a dice today. There is some talk that Serge might be having problems, but nobody's saying anything.
What's leading you to think that there is something wrong with Serge's car at the moment?
The fact that, like I said, Spes Bono stage, he's never been beaten there. Last night, Habig took 15 seconds off him. Enzo was ahead of him. He was really nowhere. So, you know, it's just not the normal Serge on that stage. And we haven't had the times from this morning, but if it continues, then obviously there's something wrong with the car.
After looking at the leading results at the end of day one, the question is, can Serge fight back? And will the N4 cars put up a real fight? Day 2 dawned with a revitalized Damso proving his detractors wrong by clawing back 18 seconds on the first stage of the morning. Habig, still in the lead, now realized that the fight was on. The same could not be said of the N4s, though, which were even being upstaged by some of the A6 and A7 cars.
What is interesting, though, Mike, is that the A7 car of Fecken and JP Damso in A6 actually ahead of the N4s. And we wouldn't have expected that.
Sure, but it's still a long day ahead of us.
It's still a long day ahead of us, although they lost quite a bit of time to the A8s, the N4s. They're over a minute behind them now, and to make up a minute isn't that easy.
What was Enzo Kuhn's take on the lack of pace in N4?
What happened to the N4s? Didn't you expect a bit more of a challenge from them?
We did, but these are real stages where you need commitment. You know, they are flat out stuff into fast corners, and I think the experience of the drivers in those cars are counting against them at the moment. It's fast stuff, and you need to really decide on a gear and stick to it and make things work.
Indeed, Fecken was certainly shoveling the A7 polo player's coals, proving again that he is one of South Africa's brightest young rally stars.
How can you involved in a hell of a battle for third place? Three-way dice, really.
Yeah, JP is about 13 seconds behind us, and Gemmel is 3 or 4 seconds behind him. So we're having a big dice. Stages are very quick, but we're enjoying it.
But a big damper was about to be put on the young Fecken's fiery performance as a deep water splash saw the polo player splatter to a halt. He managed to get it going, but the incident demoted him to 5th place.
Water splash. Bad day there today.
Yeah, I know. It's the second time it's happened today. We took a chance. We thought we'd just go for it and see if it happens twice on one day, and it did.
While Fecken got away with it, Team Total's Craig Trott was not so lucky, despite a much more careful approach to the water splash. Much to the mirth of the spectators, he had to be pushed out of his predicament.
A bit deep because the air intake is at bumper level, so it looks like the engine has swallowed a couple of gallons of water.
And without a plug spanner, Trott's challenge ground to a halt.
You learn every day in this game. After 20 years, we still pay school fees.
Cyril, behind us here, we're seeing some guys come through very quickly, some very slowly, some are getting stuck. What's the technique on this particular spot?
In deep water, there's only two ways. Either you've got to go through flat, like we saw Enzo and a few others do, but then you also need a good run into it, or very, very slow. It doesn't help, like you saw a few guys speed up in the river. Then you build up a wave in front of you, and that normally ends up inside the engine. So it's either got to be flat out or very slow.
As a driver approaching something like this, do you think about giving the fans a bit of a show, or are you just worried about getting through in a proper way?
No, personally, I was very boring through deep water. I always took the very easy option and I never went through fast. Because, you know, you lose a few seconds, but you could lose the rally.
And some crews certainly lost out.
Looking at the water splash here, we've seen 5 cars by our count being taken out here, and this is obviously an artificially created obstacle. Is that in the spirit of the event?
You know, they had this type of thing in the Castell Rally for years and years, but they also made a lake, man-made lake, and on the last stage, and drivers were always petrified of that last stage because you could actually lose the event. And like you said, we've lost probably 5 or 6 cars today, and there's another one in the background, and it's expensive, you know. The argument is that water is part of rallying, which is true, but lakes aren't. So maybe it was just a bit too deep. You know, the idea basically isn't that bad, but I think when you get to the extremes as we have here now, it's maybe a bit rough on the guys.
Gemmel, making up time after the night's disappointment, tackled the water flawlessly. But that man Reda in his spectacular Mitsubishi, although smooth through the water, was heading for retirement yet again. At least this time it was with all 4 wheels still firmly rooted to the road.
I don't know what happened this time.
The engine overheated. All the fins of the radiator shredded and made a hole in the radiator. It happened to us at stage 4. We put a new radiator in, and it's happened to us right now.
At least it wasn't a roll.
Yes, you're right. We were a long way from rolling.
Your mistake?
No, certainly not. Thank you.
Just talking to Fernando about rolling, you've obviously rolled a few times in your career?
More than I could remember, yeah.